Okay, so I'm going to get started even though there might not be students here. This is the time for them to sort of start gathering. So any students, if you are here and I'm in the middle of something, don't worry. It's all very general and it's here on the screen. So I want to welcome everyone to the virtual college exploration for all Illinois students. A few housekeeping announcements before I let the panelists get started with their presentation. Please use the Q&A button to type any questions you have to the presenters at any time during the presentation. They will be getting to those throughout the presentation. Since this is a webinar series, your camera and microphone are off. They cannot see you or hear you. So the Q&A is really your only way of communicating with them. This is just one of several sessions that we have going, so please sign up for more sessions with many different college presentations at IACAC.org. And if you know of someone who might, or you might have to leave early, if someone who can't make it, this recording will be available at IACAC.org. So now I will stop talking, mute myself, and turn it over to the presenters.
All right, thank you so much for that, and thanks everyone for attending. You are here for Understanding UK Universities. My name is Alana Stewart. I am the Regional Manager for the University of East Anglia. I am based in Michigan, and I've been working for UEA for about 4 years now. Pass it over to Rachel now so she can introduce herself.
Hi everyone, I'm Rachel Davis and I am from Cardiff University in Wales. I am the International Officer specifically for the US there, and I've been working for the university for about 8 years.
Hi everyone, my name's Peter and I'm the International Officer for North America at Queen's University Belfast in Northern Ireland.
Thank you, Peter. Last but by no means least, my name is Greg Lawson. I am the International Manager at Queen Margaret University in Edinburgh in Scotland.
All right, thanks. You'll hear from all of the colleagues. We'll talk about each of our respective countries in just a little bit. But we're going to start off doing a little bit of an introduction so to kind of contextualize what you are hearing about today. So you are here to learn about the United Kingdom, which is comprised of 4 countries. So that is England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. So you have the map here so you can kind of see what we're talking about more physically. And then also on the left-hand side, we just have a more fun map that kind of shows the things that the UK is known for, some of those stereotypical things that you might think of when you think of the UK. So things like tea, double-decker buses, the Royals, bagpipes, haggis, Irish stew, all those great things. So again, we'll talk about all of our countries respectively in a little bit, but just a little bit of a comparison for all of you. So the UK versus the United States. So when you're looking at our degrees in the UK, they are typically shorter in length than you would find in the United States. So we will, again, talk about our structures in a little bit, but the vast majority of the countries are a 3-year program with the exception of Scotland. And our programs are also completed in the expected time. So you don't run into impacted courses or courses where you might have to stay 4 or more years depending on your course enrollment or what you're able to get. Also, if you're undeclared or change your mind, we don't really have the option to do that in the UK. So again, by and large, our degrees are completed in a shorter length and completed on time. Because they are a little bit shorter, that means they're more focused. And so students do need to know what they want to go into when they come to the UK. So we talk about that's really a depth in the knowledge area that you're studying versus kind of that breadth of knowledge, which is kind of more of the liberal arts system in the United States. So again, for students who know exactly what they want to go in, you start that from day 1. For example, if you're a math major, you would never have to take another English course. Flip that. If you're into history, you'd never have to take another science course. So that might function very well for some students. We are cost comparable, and while we're not going to talk about that specifically today, again, when you look at the shorter length of our courses, the full package, when you end up looking at the total cost, looks very comparable, at least to out-of-state institutions, but maybe even some in-state institutions as well, again, just depending on where you are looking. And we do tend to have scholarships, and a lot of UK schools can also accept FAFSA loans. So those scholarships are going to be both academic, and they're also going to be, some of them will be athletic too. So it's worth noting that you might see some opportunities for elite sports. And then again, to mention, people don't imagine it, but you can get your FAFSA loans over in the UK. Just the loan portion, but it's worth putting our codes on your FAFSA application. So now we're going to start our journey around the UK, and we're going to start with Greg over in Scotland.
Thank you, Alana. Thank you very much. Well, welcome to Scotland. I'm actually in, I was going to say sunny Edinburgh, but it's obviously a little bit later in the day than it is with yourselves in Illinois. But what the kind of image in front of you, we really want to sort of portray Scotland, not just in terms of the journey that Scotland's been on, but also kind of in a light-hearted way to prove that the weather is not quite as bad as everyone would make out. It doesn't rain all the time in Scotland. The blue skies there, just to the north of the city of Edinburgh, will hopefully dispel that myth. The image there kind of shows Scotland on its journey over the last couple of hundred years, from the UNESCO World Heritage Site of the fourth bridge, the fourth rail bridge on the left, across to the kind of more modern architecture in the fourth road bridges, which span from the kind of 1960s through to sort of the 21st century there. So Scotland, very innovative, very modern, but with a lot of history as well. And the imagery that we've selected for the Scottish slides will show you that. Next slide, Alana, please. Thank you very much. So the question, I guess, that people would ask is why Scotland? I'm biased, obviously, I'm Scottish, and I would say, why not Scotland? You know, you can see there the images of Edinburgh, the city centre of Edinburgh, beautiful Princes Street, just slightly out of shot from Edinburgh Castle for anyone who's been there. A small country with a big heart and a very, very warm and friendly welcome. About just 5.2, 5.3 million people in the country as a whole, so not a big country, very easy to get around. The capital city of Edinburgh, home to the Scottish Parliament, but not the biggest city, certainly in Scottish terms. Edinburgh has a population of about 475, 480,000 people, whereas Glasgow is slightly bigger, just under 700,000 people. Being Scottish, talking about the weather all the time, seasonal weather, we would say in Scotland, there's no such thing as bad weather, you're just maybe not quite dressed properly for it. We don't have the extremes of weather that you might have, we don't have the excessively cold winters, but unfortunately we don't have quite the warm and hot summers as you might have across there. So definitely not as rainy as people might tell you, but certainly not as bad in terms of greyness as well. We would like to obviously say from the very start, and I know that Peter will contest this in terms of safety in the safest country in the UK. Scotland is a very safe destination for students to come and study. Home of Harry Potter, and we would joke and say just ask Harry if you have any questions about safety there as well. Next slide, Alana. Thank you very much. Again, looking at back, I mean, and I guess we say we're biased. We talk about Scotland and we sell Scotland, and we're very, very proud of being Scottish and all that goes with it. Thousands of years of history, breathtaking scenery, and the world's warmest welcome. The imagery there just will show you part of the Scottish coastline there. And I mean, it's spectacular. The words can't actually do the actual scene justice. Come and visit us and come and see those. The stunning coastline that we have. Scotland has the highest concentration of world-class universities. There's 19 universities in Scotland for a population of about just over 5 million. We have enough universities to go around. We're a global academic research hub. Thinking of the dreaded COVID word just now, there's lots of research going into COVID for things like the vaccine, for example, but also for things like antibody testing as well. I know the University of Dundee and the University of St Andrews and the University of Glasgow are at the forefront of technological research into finding a vaccine that we're all looking for. Many significant firsts, so in terms of inventions, anything from the telephone, Alexander Graham Bell, to John Logie Baird with the television. Some of the original inventors, I'm not sure if inventors is the right way of putting that, but certainly the founders of the US Navy as well were Scottish. Everything to the tar on the roads that you're driving around on. John Loudon McAdam, inventor of tar macadam, that's used to surface roads. This is something that's come up actually in the UK as a whole over the last week or so with announcements about renewable energy. Again, we say that the weather's not particularly bad, but we do have enough wind power and hydropower and wave power to power 100% of Scotland's renewable energy. That's a target we've exceeded a few years ahead of the target being set, which we're very proud of, but we are looking to export a lot of our green energy throughout the rest of the UK as well. Thanks, Lana. The universities themselves, we have a great mix of ancient, traditional and modern universities, going back to St Andrews and Aberdeen, founded in 1413 for St Andrews and 1495 for the University of Aberdeen, to the traditional and the more modern universities, like the University of Stirling from the 1960s. My own university, Queen Margaret University in Edinburgh, was established in 1875, and we would still describe 1875 in UK terms as being one of the more modern universities. Again, in terms of punching above our weight with rankings, QS rankings, we had some great news for most, if not all, of our Scottish universities rising in the most recent QS World Top 100 rankings as well. And I think Alana kind of touched on this in the opening slide with regards to the degree structure in Scotland being slightly different from the rest of the UK. We have the traditional 4-year undergraduate degree. Now that degree structure is actually what the US system is based upon. So for all of you in the US, you can, without maybe even thinking about the US and staying in the US for your studies, your undergraduate degree structure is based on the Scottish degree system. We have a mix of professional and vocational qualifications, a lot of whom are accredited in the USA, but check with universities and do your research and check with your course specific academics if you're speaking to them before you start with regards to any accreditations and how they transfer back to the USA. We'll come on to UCAS in a little while, but we would encourage students to apply through the UCAS system, which covers the entire UK. And again, going back to the campus universities, some of them are city centres, some of them are slightly more rural, but in terms of student safety, that's something that we're really wanting to make sure that everyone is aware of in terms of a study destination. It is safe. Next slide, Alana. And I'm going to hand you over to Rachel, who's going to talk about the beautiful country of Wales.
Thank you. Yeah, so as I said earlier, my name is Rachel and I work for Cardiff University in Wales. So I thought I'd start by telling you a bit about where we are. So for those of you who don't know, we are just next to England, bordered mostly by water. We are quite a small country, both in terms of our population and our size geographically. So to give you a point of comparison there, we're slightly smaller than the US state of New Jersey. We have about 3 million people, and of that, about 129,000 are students. Our capital city is Cardiff, so that's right in the south of the country. It's about 2 hours west of London. So you can see on the map there, it looks like we're quite far apart, but actually the UK is not very big, so it's only 2 hours away. Similar to Scotland, we have a seasonal climate. It doesn't get too hot, doesn't get too cold. So it's a perfect place to be if you like spending time outdoors, as you can take advantage of that all year round. We also boast some of the lowest living costs in the UK. So Wales is a great option for you if you're thinking about getting a great education, but on a budget. Next slide, please, Alana. Thank you. So why Wales? So the main reason to consider Wales is that we are able to offer you a world-class education. So even though we're quite a small country, we pack a real punch in terms of our universities. So we have 10 different ones, ranging from large research-intensive institutions like mine, which is also a Russell Group university, to smaller, more modern teaching-based institutions. And they really range in terms of location and size as well. So we've got some that are urban, sort of city-based universities, some more rural, some coastal. And 75% of the research from Welsh universities is world leading. So this means that you're being taught by academics who are truly cutting edge, and will mean that also your degree is known worldwide as being from a quality institution. In terms of graduate prospects, then, there's something really important for you to consider when you're looking at universities is how they're going to affect your future prospects. And 92% of graduates in Wales go on to further employment or study shortly after graduating. And that's partly down to the industry links that we have as institutions across the country, and also the fact that we have strong links with Welsh Government as well. So as you may be aware, in the UK, the governments of Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland are devolved from England, and in Wales, they look after education as well. So that's something that we really benefit from as institutions. In terms of the country itself, we are known for our beauty. So as you can see here, similar to what Greg was saying about Scotland, it doesn't always rain in Wales, even though people will tell you it does. This is not photoshopped. We have 6 UNESCO World Heritage Sites in Wales, and a quarter of the country is either a national park or an area of outstanding natural beauty. So it's a truly beautiful country to visit. And we have some of the world's best beaches. As you can see here, this is one of my favorites. This is Tenby. And we have a coast path that runs the length of the country as well. So that gives you an idea of some of the kind of outdoors activities that you can take advantage of if you come and study with us in Wales as well. As a country, we're particularly famous for our culture. This includes things like music and literature, particularly opera and our choirs. So we have the Millennium Centre on the top left there, which is a world-class opera house in Cardiff. We also have over 600 castles in Wales, so you're never very far from a castle. So if you're a history buff, it's definitely somewhere to consider. We have more castles per square mile than anywhere else in Europe. But something that we're really proud of and really sets us apart as a country from the rest of the UK is our language. So we have Europe's oldest living language, which is Welsh. It's spoken by about 20% of the population, and you absolutely don't need to be able to speak it to come and study with us. There isn't a language barrier as such. You can study in English, and that's very easy to do and easy to get around without being able to speak it. But it's something that you'll see on all of our street signs. You can see that the little Study in Wales logo at the bottom there is bilingual. And it's something that I think we're really proud of and have really fought to preserve as well. So if you want to study Welsh, or at least kind of have the opportunity to immerse yourself in it, that's definitely an option while you're studying with us as well. We're very passionate about our sport, particularly rugby. So the Principality Stadium, which is that picture on the bottom left there, is where we have big international rugby games, but also football or soccer. We also are very well known for our cricket. And we have an annual Eisteddfod, which is our cultural festival that dates back all the way to 1176. And this is where we celebrate literature and dance and poetry, and it brings together Welsh people across the country every year. So it takes place in a different part of the country each year as well. And we're also becoming increasingly known as a real kind of media and TV hub as well. So we're often used as a film set, partly for that natural beauty that I described earlier. But Cardiff in particular is being used more and more for TV shows you may have seen, like Sherlock, Doctor Who and His Dark Materials. So it's not out of the question that you'll see film sets on campus at Cardiff as well. So that's something that is particularly exciting for our students. So I hope that gave you kind of a whistle-stop tour of Wales. Obviously, I'm really happy to take any questions that you have at the end as well, and you'll have my email address as well. But I'm going to hand over to Alana now, who's going to give you a bit of an overview of studying in England.
Awesome. Thanks, Rachel. And if you haven't done so already too, and or if you didn't hear the message, if you do have any questions, feel free to pop them in the Q&A box for us, and we can get to them either as we're presenting or at the end of the Q&A section. So now we're heading over to merry old England, which is the largest and the most populous of the 4 countries that comprise the UK. We also do have the largest 3 cities in the UK. So that would be London, Manchester, and Leeds. So if you're looking for those larger cities, we would definitely maybe be the location that you might be looking for, especially in terms of London having a really large population, being a really sprawling cosmopolitan city. So other things that we're known for, Shakespeare, obviously Oxbridge, which is how we refer to as Oxford and Cambridge. Those are world-renowned institutions. Also, there's Stonehenge, so we have history, dating quite a while back, similarly to some of my UK counterparts. We're also known for the Beatles. If you enjoy, maybe some older music, I know they kind of transcend generations, or the more recent One Direction. And we know they have disbanded since, but that's just one example, obviously, of some of the British culture that has expanded worldwide. Wales has some of the films, but I just thought it might be worth mentioning some of the other, the filming that has happened in England more recently. So if you've seen Ted Lasso, which is on Apple Plus, it's a whole thing about a made up British soccer team. Kind of a cool series. I know I've enjoyed it. That's filmed in England. And then also Enola Holmes, if you've watched that, it's a Netflix movie, but they've done a lot of the filming for that in various locations in England. So that would just show you a good cross sample of kind of the different areas of England that you would have, you know, kind of the geographical spans. So a lot of people might refer to, you know, other than London, outside in the more pastoral or rural areas, we also have the Cotswolds, the Lake District, and some more. So nice recreational spaces for students to take advantage of. So other things we're known for are football, and by that I mean in the US soccer. So teams like Arsenal, Manchester, Liverpool, you know, all those other ones that you may have heard of and might even root for one if you follow the Premier League. We're also known for the royals, so the queens, princesses, princes, and then finally fish and chips. Every town, I think, pretty much has their own fish and chip shop that they would recommend to visitors. And it's definitely something that they do eat quite a bit. So out of the universities in England, there are 106. I think there's about 160 or a few more overall within the entirety of the UK, but England has the vast majority of those. And we do have the oldest university. So that would be Oxford, and that was started in 1096. It's the second oldest university in the world. So if that means something to you, you can come and study at Oxford within England. We are set up within the 3 years bachelor system. So this is the same for Wales and Northern Ireland, but a 3 years bachelor, which is pretty much standard, and a 1 year master's degree. So there are some variations to this that you will see. But again, the standard program is going to be 3 years and be 3 very focused years. And then finally, we're home to about 14,000 plus US students. And that's about 3 times more than the next country in the UK, which is Scotland. But if you're looking, you know, for kind of the path well traveled, definitely England has a lot of other US students. But international students overall. So England is home to the world's #1 international student city, which is London. There are over 100,000 international students in London itself. And then the largest higher education sector, we're home to 1.8 million students overall. So that's total in terms of students. So again, just a wider education sector, a lot more options in terms of universities. And then finally, about 80% of students choose England from outside the EU. But other than that, like the rest of the UK degrees, you're going to find that degrees from England are going to be internationally respected, you know, even if that's not necessarily from a place that's like Oxford or Cambridge. It's definitely a place where, again, you'll get that degree recognized because of our strong educational system. We also serve as the gateway to Europe. So London has the Eurostar train, which will get you directly to Paris or Belgium really quickly. Also easy flights to get over to mainland Europe too. But the train is right there and very close to France. This is very contentious of me to say, but coming from the US, I would say that the English accent is a little bit easier to understand than some of the other ones. Again, my colleagues are going to get me for this later, but it's one of the things I think that some of the English accents are easier to understand than some of the other ones. Again, that could probably be varying depending on the area that you're in, whether you're in a larger city or more rural area. But I think overall, because we're more used to it within films and TV, it is a tiny bit easier for us to understand. And then finally, we are cultural influencers. So whether that's fashion and what the Queen, or whether that's what Kate Middleton is wearing, or whether that's musical influence like One Direction, I think we do have kind of that global reach of cultural influence. You know, whether that's good or bad, that could probably be argued, but still. So now we're going to pass it over, last but not least, to Northern Ireland and Peter, so he can talk about that little part of the country.
Thank you very much, Alana. Yes, I'm from one of those parts of the country where the accent maybe isn't as familiar and refined as you would see coming out of the royal family. But yes, last but by no means least, Northern Ireland. We are the smallest of the 4 nations of the United Kingdom, with a population of about 1.8 million. I'll be quite honest with my pictures, and there's a nice grey sky there in the background. But without the rain, you can't get rainbows. And then where are you going to find your leprechauns and your pots of gold and all that good stuff? So if Alana, you could jump on to the next slide, please. So there is Northern Ireland. We're the little one highlighted in black there, and Belfast is the capital city. Northern Ireland is officially the safest, happiest and cheapest part of the United Kingdom. Unofficially, it's the best, but my colleagues will contend with that. That's all decided by the very official British Office of National Statistics. So if anybody can measure happiness, they can. So as I've said, capital city is Belfast, about 300,000 people, but we are a very rural country by definition. It is all outdoors and green fields and rolling hills and mountains and all those things that kind of come to mind when you think of Ireland. Just for a little geography lesson, obviously Ireland is its own country. Northern Ireland is that little northern part, and we are part of the UK. And if we jump onto the next slide, as you will see, what that means for you guys and for anyone who comes to study in Northern Ireland is you get a little bit of the best of both worlds, because you get that internationally renowned UK education, but also that Irish welcome that we are absolutely famous for. The people between Ireland, North and South, and the US have a lot in common and a long and proud shared history. So you'd be more than welcome to come and discover some of that. In terms of the country, we are quite a young country, both in stature, but also in terms of our population. So 46% of the population is under 30 years old. And what that means for students is that everything in Northern Ireland is geared towards young people. The capital city in Belfast, the life and the culture is very much geared around the arts. It's a lot of live music and cinemas and theatres and museums. It's a fantastic place. Our culture is obviously something that Ireland is renowned for. We are the birthplace of most of the great writers you will have heard of: C.S. Lewis, Seamus Heaney, Samuel Beckett, Oscar Wilde, and I could go on and on and on naming them. We are probably most famous though for building the Titanic, which strangely we talk about a lot considering it didn't go very well, but we don't offer any programs in marine engineering, so don't worry too much about that. And then finally, a little bit about higher education and university options in Northern Ireland. It's quite simple when you come to Northern Ireland, in that there are only 2 universities. There goes the Titanic, wave goodbye. 2 universities, Queen's University Belfast, who I work for, and Ulster University. So that makes it really simple. I know this is a lot of information to take on and a lot of things to wrap your head around. So if you come to Northern Ireland, you only have to pick between 2, which makes life a lot easier. We operate on the same system as England and Wales, so 3-year undergraduate majors. So you would declare your major at the point of application and then dive straight in. So no gen ed or mixed classes, things like that. It's just whatever you want to study, you can do from day one. We are both based in the capital city of Belfast. So we have city centre campuses. And while it is a small city, it is a capital city. So you have everything going on there. But most importantly for us and for some of our subjects, what that means is world leading research. Particularly in the likes of things like politics, international relations, but also in the fields of STEM and arts and literature. We have been at the forefront of everything culturally and academically going on in Northern Ireland since before the country even existed. So the education is world class, but so is the welcome. As I said, guaranteed affordable housing and living in Northern Ireland. The cost of living in Belfast is about 40% the price of living in London. So if you want to come and get a little bit more out of your time and your money and your social life, Northern Ireland might be the place for you. But with that, we will round up and I'll hand back to Greg to tell you how to apply.
Thank you very much, and always such a hard act to follow as following Peter and presenting. Thank you very much. It's also funny to hear so many positive comments about all the 4 nations of the UK, and each of us telling you that we're the best and why. In order to make an application, and the first thing I would say just before we go on to the UCAS aspect of things is, in terms of communication and support, it's something that universities are all very much about, and it's at the forefront of what we're telling you this afternoon or tonight. In terms of the UCAS process and the application process, communication is key. Speak to the universities, speak to university reps. Your college admissions counsellor as well would also be able to kind of talk you through the process. So although there's 2 very quick slides on UCAS here, there's plenty of support there for you to make sure that you have all your questions answered before you start. So UCAS, the UCAS itself, the acronym stands for the Universities and Colleges Admissions Service. Some universities will use the Common App. Whilst obviously UCAS and the UCAS website are certainly the most commonly used tool for applying for UK university courses. I think there's about 23 universities in the UK we're using Common App. And some universities as well will take direct applications. Again, speak to the university reps, because they will be able to tell you, even at different parts and processes and different parts of the calendar year, whether they will be able to take direct applications or whether they will insist that you stick to the UCAS application or Common App. Next slide, Lana, thank you very much. With the UCAS website, which is in the second line there, www.ucas.com, you can apply for up to 5 different university programs. There is a set application fee. Now, if you're going to make a single application, that's $25. And if you're going to go for the full whack and go for the 5 at multiple universities, that's $31. Now, what we will say is, in terms of your school, your college, school or college, sorry, or even your advisor can register to become a UCAS centre, and for supporting you, they can create their own buzzword or password to link your applications to them, just to make sure, I guess, that your support is full, thorough, and clear and concise, and the guidance that you get is there for you at all times. Again, communicate with universities if you want to speak to university reps. A lot of us will run online sessions as well for supporting you, for not just for pre-arrival, but before that stage in your student journey. And we want to make sure that if you do have questions, and the likelihood is you will have questions, that you have the full support there. There will be a lot of terminology that we use in all the 4 nations of the UK with regards to UCAS, the courses, in terms of making applications and all sorts of things, even qualifications and equating qualifications to UK qualifications. The terminology, a lot of it is explained on the UCAS website. But again, and I sound like a bit of a broken record, just please keep talking to the universities, talk to university reps, talk to your college admissions councillors as well. The support is there, and you will be fully supported throughout the whole UCAS and application process.
Hi, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what's included as part of your UCAS application. So there's some information here which kind of summarises what you need. So firstly, your personal details, so things like your address, also student finance, but that's only for UK and EU students. So for the most part, you probably won't have to worry about that part. Then it comes to your choices, so the maximum of 5 for the majority of courses. We'll talk a bit about this in a moment, but some courses are restricted to 4 choices. Generally, you'd go for kind of 3 roughly that are either your target entry requirements, or what you're hoping to achieve, or maybe some that are slightly out of the reach of what you were expecting to get, and then 2 that have slightly lower entry requirements. So those would be kind of insurance choices. So universities that you're more confident you'll be able to meet the entry requirements for. You're then asked to list your education thus far, as well as anything that you're expecting to achieve. So essentially in this part, you're listing any test scores that you've previously received, as well as details of your high school qualifications, as well as your predicted the qualifications that you're due to achieve. So when you apply to a university in the UK, we don't expect that you will have met our entry requirements. So we expect that you will most likely be taking things like AP tests, SAT subject tests, and so on in your senior year. So you can list the tests that you're planning to take. And if you do receive an offer, it's likely to be conditional based on those tests. You can list as well any information about employment history, so any jobs that you've had, and you'll need to supply a reference. So this would usually be from a teacher or from a counsellor who will write in support of your application and can talk about you from a standpoint of your eligibility for the programs. And then your personal statement is a really key part of the application. And this is where you talk about why you want to study the program. So your understanding of the course, what you're hoping to get out of it, and anything that you can talk about in terms of your own experiences that can be linked to your course and why you want to study it. And then next slide, Alana, please. Thank you. So these are our key application dates for you to remember. So the 1st of September is when we start accepting applications. The 15th of October is the deadline for things like medicine, dentistry, veterinary sciences, and also Oxford and Cambridge, who have quite a different application process to the vast majority of us. And so it's really important to remember that if you are hoping to apply to Oxford and Cambridge, you would probably need to do a bit of additional research to understand the application processes for those universities. But the 15th of October is the deadline for medicine, dentistry and veterinary sciences, with a view to starting the following year. For everything else, the 15th of January is the deadline for equal consideration and for UK students. But most universities in the UK will consider accepting or continue to accept international applications up until June. So you actually do have plenty of time, although we would normally recommend that you try to meet that earlier deadline just to make life easy for yourself and for equal consideration. By the 31st of March, you'll hear back from your university choices generally if you've met that 15th of January deadline. And then you have until the 4th of May to decide which universities you want to consider. So normally you choose a firm and an insurance choice at that point. I appreciate this is a bit of a whistle-stop tour of the UCAS application, so please do feel free to ask any questions that you have as well.
Hello again, everybody. So I'm going to talk about those things that don't quite fit into the standard approach that Rachel and Greg have just described. Just before I get started, this is sort of coming to the end of the presentation. So if you've got any questions, please do pop them into the Q&A, and we'll have a few minutes once I'm finished here to talk those through. So you can throw those questions in now. So there are some things within the UK that aren't quite fitting into that 3 or 4 year bracket that we described and don't fit into normal UCAS admissions. The biggest one of these exceptions is for medicine, dentistry and veterinary science, which come under their own special medical bracket. Medical school and dental school generally is 5 years long in the UK, and there will be very specific testing demands. The obvious advantage to this is if you want to study medicine, you want to study dentistry, you can do it directly at undergraduate level, but there is a slightly different application process. The main thing to be aware of is that the deadline for medicine applications is the 15th of October every year, and that is a hard and fast deadline. We can't accept late applications. So if you are thinking of studying medicine in the UK for next fall, it's possibly looking a little bit late for this year. There are some things that are required as part of that. Generally a clinical aptitude test of some description, either the UK clinical aptitude test or the British medical aptitude test. And those are tests you need to sit online in advance of applying. So those need to be done in the summer before you submit your application. So ideally the summer after your junior year. We will also ask for a lot of experience for those applications. As I'm sure you can imagine, medicine and dentistry are both exceptionally competitive programs because of the excellent standard of healthcare and tuition in the United Kingdom. And again, there will be interview processes. Some other programs will have some specific requirements, but as Greg said, and as we've alluded to a few times in this presentation, the best thing you can do if you're not sure is ask. Our admissions culture is very much one that is open. It is open to students asking questions. We will tell you exactly what you need to get into any of our universities. If you just drop us an email or jump on the website, our decisions are made based on academic merit. So we will tell you what you need to get. We will tell you how to get in, and you can ask as many questions as you want. So if you're not sure about any of this, even if you can't ask questions now, please get in touch with any university that you think you would like to apply to, and we'll explain how the process works. We'll finish up with that, and from here we will take questions. So if you have any questions, pop them into the Q&A. We do have a couple that have come in privately and earlier. The first one is, what is our policy around test optional and admissions for 2021 in light of changes to testing in this school year? Which is a great question, and one that I know is on everybody's minds. I might go around the houses to my colleagues on this. So very quickly from everybody, what's happening test optional? We'll go to you first, Rachel, in Wales.
Yeah, so I mean, at the moment, officially, we're not test optional, but we are going to operate a flexible approach where we can. So essentially, at the moment, for us in Cardiff particularly, our entry requirements are 3 AP tests or 3 SAT subject tests, but we understand that particularly based on what happened last year, it might not be possible to take those tests. So what we'll be doing is working with students on an individual basis to offer as much flexibility as we can. So all I would say is if you're thinking of applying to us and you have concerns about that, please reach out to me directly and I can work with you throughout the process to make sure that we support you. We are going to be trying to offer as much flexibility as we can. That's certainly what we did for students who came in this September, and we understand that the climate at the moment is making things really difficult in terms of certain tests. So the main thing is just to be reassured that it's nothing to worry about at this point.
Perfect. How about Scotland?
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, exactly the same as Rachel. I think what we're all keen to say to everyone is that these are unprecedented times we're all living through, and that we want to try and be as supportive, and listen to people's concerns. If there's anything, scenarios that come up that we're maybe haven't come across yet, again, we, as your representatives, as your contacts, we are happy to take things to our admissions teams, and just try and get solutions for you, and to help you as much as we can. So yeah, our situation is very, very much the same as what Rachel's described in Cardiff.
Perfect, thank you very much. And I'll jump over to a much easier accent to understand in England.
So with that, at least, I guess at least for people from the US, my colleagues from the UK don't understand what I'm saying all the time. So you get that. Always fun. So with UEA, and I think a lot of, I think it goes very similarly for a lot of the UK institutions, we are going to be as flexible as we can possibly be. Some of us never required, or it was just, kind of a recommendation that you take the ACT or SAT, or was part of, kind of a bunch of different options you had to apply to the university. So I think we were always kind of test optional in that sense, but we always did require some sort of higher level subject specific requirements, I think in a lot of the cases, or something that would substitute in lieu of that. So what that looks like for a lot of us is 3 AP examinations. Again, there are things you can take instead of the AP exams, but I know for UEA specifically, we've always required 3 AP examinations or IB exams, and that replicates the UK educational system at the high school level, because students in the UK are studying, 3 subject areas for about 2 years to prepare for university. So I always like to contextualize that, just to let you all know that we're not trying to be mean, we're not trying to be restrictive. We're just trying to make sure that the students that we get are prepared students for our educational system, and that you are going to, make it, and you are going to be successful in the UK educational system.
Perfect, thank you, Alana. And in terms of Northern Ireland, I have nothing to add in terms of what my colleagues have said. We will look at every application individually, and we will give you every chance to get in. I think the point that we're all probably trying to emphasize is that you are very much welcome in the UK, and we will not hold whatever has happened to you this year. And the same goes in future years. We will do our level best to make sure you have a fair shot at admissions based on the circumstances you have come from. But again, the culture in our admissions is to have a two-way conversation with you. So please, if you're in any doubt, just reach out and get in touch with the universities, and we'll talk you through what is best for you and how we can best help you to get here. Because we all like having international students, particularly American students. They bring a certain energy to the campus that is maybe unique for your part of the world. So please do just get in touch if you need anything. There is one final question that is there, and that is related to what we've been talking about, and that is, are we still accepting students on campus, and what special arrangements have been made this semester? I guess I'll kick off with that one. International students have been able to start in the UK this year, so we have just had our class arrive about 3 weeks ago, and there are plenty of US students among that. Things are obviously a little bit different this year. Some classes are online, some are in person. But we're just moving as best we can with it. Obviously, we all hope in a year's time this will all have gone away and just be nothing more than a happy memory that we tell stories about. But we are still accepting international students. We are quite lucky in the UK. We have things like private rooms in our accommodation. So students have been able to stay in their student housing all the way through. Most of us now have private ensuite bathrooms and things like that as well. So actually, it's pretty doable on campus. Does anybody elsewhere have anything to add before I jump to another question that's in the box, or should we just move on?
We probably need to, I was going to say, if anybody has any last bits to add, otherwise we are almost at closing time. I am typing a response right now to that question. I think you all might be able to see it, but if you have anything to add in.
So yes, we will finish up because we are ticking away. But just that last question is about how schools handle the jump in knowledge for Americans coming to the UK. We're very familiar with supporting international students in the UK, and there will be support available for you. Obviously, there's no language barrier of sorts to get over, but there is academic support. You'll be assigned a tutor, and they will help you through on one-to-one. But I believe Alana will answer that in more detail. But for now, we will say thank you, and everybody will say goodbye. But if you have any questions, you have our details. Please do follow up.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for giving up your time to be with us.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. When you close this window, there will be a very quick 4-question survey. We'd appreciate any feedback that you can provide. Also, once again, this is one of many sessions that are being hosted, so be sure to sign up for additional sessions at iacac.org. And then about a week, if you weren't able to get here in time, you'll find this session's recording as well as other sessions recording at iacac.org. But I hope everyone has a great week, and thank you so much for coming.